If you're familiar with the Smith & Wesson M&P line of pistols, you know they come in several sizes, and I have 4 examples of those here. The Shield, the compact with the 3.5 inch barrel, I guess technically 3.6, but I'm going to call it 3.5 inch for ease of use with this video. The compact with the 4-inch barrel, and the full size. I previously reviewed these 3, did a comparison video between the Shield and the compact, which was very popular. I'll put a link up above, you can check that out. And recently had a chance to compare the 3.5 inch versus the 4-inch, and thought I would put up a comparison video between the 2 of those. So let me get these out of the way. Now of note, this is the original compact. I've had this for several years. This is the version 1.0 as it were. This is the 2.0 compact, so it has some of the new modifications on this 4-inch version. The original 3.5 inch one does now come in a 2.0 version, so if you like some of these changes, you can get that in this as well. Price-wise, between the 2 of these on the Smith & Wesson website, they are actually both listed at $569. Street price is going to be lower, but it did kind of surprise me that they are both the same price to start out with. Capacity-wise, there are several options for both of these. The 3.5 comes with a flat base plate, either a 10 or a 12 round version. Also comes with a 12 round with a pinky extension, and you can get an X grip, one of these X grips here, to put on one of the 17 round magazines for the full size, and that will then fit in there flush, and you can make it a 17 round gun. The 4-inch barrel comes with a flat base plate 15 round magazine, and this one actually comes with the X grip for the 17 round magazine, so you don't have to buy it extra, which is pretty nice. So options 10, 12, or 17 rounds for the 3.5 inch, 15 or 17 for the 4-inch. Now I had the question, could you put the 15 round magazine with the small X grip adapter in the 3.5 inch? And the answer is kind of, but not really. Here it is here. And you can see it works because the magazines all fit in the gun the same way, but there's some space here at the bottom, some play, so it's not really the ideal setup, but could it work if you really wanted it to, I suppose, but not ideal. Next, I looked at the weight between the 2 of these, and I weighed them in several different variations. First, I compared the empty gun. The empty 3.5 inch comes in at 22.4 ounces, and the 4-inch comes in at 24.3 ounces. Then I compared what I thought would be the most common carry setup, and that being the 12 round pinky extension and the 15 round flat base plate. You can use the 12 round flat base plate. I think this pinky extension doesn't make a huge difference, but probably negligible, so I think this is a reasonable comparison. And the weight with the empty magazines, 27 ounces and 27.2 ounces, actually surprisingly similar. And then I compared them with fully loaded 147 grain 12 and 15 round magazines, not the +1, just the 12 and 15 rounds. And for that, I got 31.1 ounces and 34.5 ounces. So roughly a 3.5 ounce difference with the fully loaded magazines. That's the kind of the carry weight as it would be. Another difference between the 2 of these is the back straps. The back straps are adjustable and come off. There's several sizes. Pull this off here and the back strap comes off. The 3.5 inch comes with small, medium, and large back straps, whereas the 4-inch comes with small, medium, medium large, and large back straps. So 4 back strap options for the 4-inch gun. Both of these guns have been milled for red dot sights. I have Trijicon RMRs on both of them. You can, if you're so inclined, just get it regular and use iron sights on them. You can get one of their Performance Center ones, or you can get one of the ones that come pre-milled, or you can do it yourself afterwards and then add backup iron sights. But you need to, if you are adding the red dot, add higher backup irons because they need to co-witness above that red dot, so you have a little higher sights than the original sights. Just something to note. Let's compare the size of them now. Again, with, I'm going to say, the most common carry option, that being the pinky extension and the 15 round flat base plate version. Just to start with, as a side note, let me show you the flat base plate version of both. If you're going to carry it in the smallest possible version, line up those sights, and you can see there is some savings there on the size of the bottom of the grip. Now when you're carrying it though, I have medium-sized hands, and there's definitely some pinky dangling on the bottom of this one, and that full-size grip on the 4-inch version definitely is much nicer for your pinky. Because of that, I always carry it with the pinky extension grip, and that gives you much more control over the gun, help with recoil management. So comparing these two, the way I would typically carry them, line up the tops, And you can see that the front part of the grip is actually pretty close to the same height. For all intents and purposes, it's pretty close. But you're going to have some savings there in the back. And where this may help, if you're carrying outside the waistband, say at 3 o'clock, this is where your shirt is going to drape over. So it's going to be a little less gun to print back here versus the 4-inch barrel that's going to stick out a little bit more. If you're carrying inside the waistband appendix, probably not as big of a deal. But outside the waistband at 3 o'clock, there's going to be a little bit less printing of this contoured grip down here. Width and length, the width is the same on both of these. They're both double stacks. And the length, obviously, you're going to save a little bit on the 3.5-inch barrel because the barrel is shorter. However, depending on how you're carrying this, certainly if it's outside the waistband, this just runs down your leg. It's no problem concealing it. It's not going to make that much difference in a covering garment. If you're carrying appendix, maybe you don't want this poking as much down into your groin, but I know people carry the full-sized appendix, and just to throw in a size comparison here between the three of them, people carry the full size and they do fine with it, appendix. So there's a rough size comparison between the three of them with the length. So really it just depends on how you're going to carry it and what your body size is and what you can tolerate. Up in front, the 4-inch version has one more rail slot than the 3.5-inch, so you can put either a larger light or farther back. The new 2.0s do also have some cocking serrations up on the front here to grab it. I would suggest you don't put your hand up near the front of the gun, but you can if you're so inclined. Otherwise, they both have the serrations on the back if you want to grip it back here. The triggers on both of these are both aftermarket Apex triggers. This is similar to the style to the original Smith & Wesson trigger. Has the trigger safety here. If you just push the top of it, the trigger won't go. If you drop it, this little piece is not going to move enough. It doesn't have enough mass or inertia to accidentally go off. Then of course there's the internal drop safeties, but this is the original style trigger. And the Smith & Wesson triggers are much nicer than they used to be. They now have an audible reset. Again, this is aftermarket, but they now have an audible reset. Alternatively, you can get the Apex triggers, which also have the reset. But if you want to keep it stock, the stock trigger is actually pretty nice, much better. In the past, you almost always had to replace the trigger if you wanted something nice. The newer ones are actually pretty nice if you don't want to spend the money on the aftermarket trigger. How about comparing the shooting characteristics between the two of these? I just got back from a weekend. I shot 1,100 rounds between the two of these over 2 days, so I had a good chance to compare them. If you're just doing iron sights on them, you're going to have a longer sight radius on that 4-inch barrel. It's going to enable you to be more accurate. If you're doing the red dot, it's not going to be as big of a deal as if you're just doing the irons. Recoil-wise, this one has a little bit more grip to it, both in the front here for your pinky versus this in the back here with your palm. You're going to get more palm on the back of this one, and so you can control this one a little bit better. You can, like I said, put 17 round in this, and then you have plenty of space there to help with the recoil. But like I said, in the most common carry version, there's a little bit less control of the gun with the smaller grip versus the 4-inch, where you get a lot more of your hand on the grip. So I felt like both between that and a little bit more mass, a little bit more length to the gun, the recoil was just a little bit more controlled on the 4-inch gun. It was a little bit more comfortable to shoot comparatively. Carrying the two of these, I've carried this one for years. I carried outside the waistband at 3 o'clock. Occasionally it might print a little bit. It's not horrible. I think most people won't notice it. First time I tried carrying this one, I thought, wow, that is a huge difference between the size and the weight of these. Like I said before, it's about a 3.5 ounce difference between the fully loaded weight. This one is going to print a little bit more, but after I carried this one for most of the weekend, it was actually not that bad. I just got kind of used to it. Now, when I went back to this, I felt, wow, this is pretty small. It's kind of like when I carry this one and I occasionally want to go for a small gun and I'll carry my shield. So there is a noticeable difference, but not huge. The grips between the two of these, the original grip on the first version of these had some texturing, but in comparison was really pretty smooth, pretty comfortable. These new 2.0s have this almost sandpaper-like grip, and when I first picked it up, I thought, oh my God, that is crazy. That's going to tear my hand up. I'm going to be bleeding. But again, after shooting it for most of the weekend, by the end of the weekend, really, it just felt fine to me. I know some people will take this and sandpaper it down to make it a little bit smoother. That's an option, but once you get used to it, it's actually not all that bad, surprisingly. Now, which one should you get? Or if you have one or the other, should you get the other one? Well, I think a lot of that depends on your body habits, your size, how much you can tolerate carrying, how you carry it, and the purpose of what you're doing with it. So if you are carrying this for concealed carry purposes, the smaller one is going to be a little bit easier to carry, although not hugely. If you're female, if you are wearing smaller clothes, this one may be a little bit better for you. If you have a larger body size, you're going to be able to conceal this one really no problem at all. It's really not that much different, and you probably won't notice the extra 3 ounces. 12 rounds versus 15, or 13 versus 16 with the +1. For range purposes, the larger capacity is certainly nice. Granted, you can put the 17 rounds in for both of them, and you can get the same capacity. For gunfighting purposes, I never knew anyone that didn't wish they had more rounds in a gunfight. So 16 rounds versus 13, another 3 rounds may work to your advantage, may save your life. Now, if you have one of them, should you get the other? Kind of a personal preference. If you have this one, is it worth upgrading to a larger barrel with more capacity? It is nice. It does shoot a little bit smoother. It is a little bit heavier. You could carry more capacity. So there are the advantages, kind of a pros and cons. I think you have to make that size, weight, and capacity decisions on your own. In the end, they're both great guns. I really enjoy shooting both of them. Let me know what your thoughts between the two of these are, if you have both of them, if you have one or the other. As always, appreciate your comments, appreciate you watching, and catch you next time.